Stand by for manual transmission in 3, 2, 1.
Karen, what's our status?
Well, Manus, you need to travel 5,000 light-years from your starting point, and you need to collect 25 Thargoid sensor fragments to unlock Professor Palin. You have half a pack of cigarettes, it's dark, and you're wearing sunglasses.
Those aren't cigarettes, and how did you know I was... Never mind. Hit it.
Dun 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 dun. 07 Commanders, Nuggets, and Empty Triangles. Mando Dextra here with Chapter 6 of my ultimate guide to bounty hunting. In the last episode, I showed you how to build an easy engineered vulture and use it to make all the money doing massacre missions. In this episode, I'll show you the most efficient way to unlock Professor Palin for those sweet, sweet Grade 5 dirty drag drive upgrades. Speed is one of the most important elements in effective combat or avoiding combat, and Palin's thruster mods will go great on the Vulture and all the other combat ships we're going to build. Unlocking him will take a few hours of game time, but it's definitely worth the effort. So let's get started. Now, I know I promised in the last episode that we'd be building a Crate Mark II to do this task, but the Diamondback Explorer is a much better choice for the job. And after doing a few massacre missions, we have plenty of money for new ships. Don't worry, we'll get to the crate eventually. As mentioned, in this video, I'll show you how to unlock the good professor as quickly as possible while taking some time to collect the sensor fragments Professor P requires at a Thargoid surface site. We'll also scoop up some super rare raw materials from the crystal shard forests hidden in 2 remote systems, and finally, we'll use the Neutron superhighway to cover as much space as we can as quickly as possible. Check the description for a Coriolis link to the DBX build, as well as exact locations for all the spots mentioned in the video and timestamps for each section. And while you're there, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more Elite Dangerous content. It only takes a second or two, but it really helps to keep your old Uncle Manus in hookers and blow. The DBX has legs, and it knows how to use them. With little to no engineering, this ship can achieve 60 light-year jumps thanks to the new Class 5 pre-engineered FSD that's now available from human technology brokers. You can use the Search Nearest tool from Inara to find the closest one, and once located, you'll need to bring the proper combination of engineering materials to unlock the module. Again, just check the description for specific requirements. The only engineering absolutely required for this build is adding the Mass Manager experimental effect to the FSD, available from Felicity Farseer. Any other engineered components used here were borrowed from other builds such as my Cobra Mark III and aren't strictly necessary. Other essential components of this build include the Class 4 double SRV bay. We're going to be doing a lot of material collecting on this trip, and even with 2 SRVs, we may need to make repairs and or synthesize fuel and ammo, so be prepared for that. Synthesis is found under the Inventory tab of your right side ship panel. This is also where you can keep track of engineering materials, in case you didn't know. We'll need 2 auto field maintenance units to keep our ship's modules repaired as we make supercharged neutron star jet cone boost jumps. The AMFUs suck up a lot of power, so we'll keep them powered down until we actually need to use them. Check the Coriolis link to the build for specifics on how I set my power priorities to make this run. Also, don't forget to set the Use Jet Cone Boost option and include neutron stars in your filters on the galaxy map. Using jet cone boosts, this ship can jump in excess of 240 light years in a single go. So this can really reduce the time it takes to get this trip done. Just remember, while jet cones will supercharge your FSD, they won't fill your fuel tank, so keep it topped off whenever possible, since fuel can get really low doing that third jet cone boost jump in a row. Our first stop is HIP 36601. There are 4 planets in this system with crystal shard sites where we can gather polonium, ruthenium, tellurium, and technetium. Check the description for specific locations. As we approach each planet, we'll need to map it with a detailed surface scanner to reveal the crystal shard sites. The sites we want will be listed as biological in the left side nav panel. Once we locate the proper sites, all we need to do is fly to them, land, and collect the materials in the SRV. This consists of targeting the crystal shards with the SRV's weapons, shooting them off their trees, and then scooping them up with the SRV's cargo scoop. And while this isn't the most exciting gameplay, it is the most efficient way to gather the raw materials we'll need for engineering ships. So suck it up, Buttercup. And all these sites work the same way. You just shoot the shards and scoop them up until your storage is full, and then move on to the next one. The next 2 systems we need to visit contain more crystal shard sites and a ruined Thargoid surface base. We'll gather antimony and yttrium to finish out our material collecting in one system, and we'll collect 25 sensor fragments for Professor Palin in the other. As we did with the crystal shard sites, we'll need to map the planet before we see the Thargoid sites in the left side panel. I landed at the main Thargoid surface site and killed scavengers in the SRV to collect sensor fragments. These and other materials can be scooped up after destroying the little guys. If you keep your distance, scavengers are easy to kill and pose no threat to your SRV. What the scavengers actually drop at any given time is determined by RNG, and it can be a bit frustrating to kill 2 or 3 groups of these guys without getting anything useful. But if you have a bit of patience, it really isn't that bad. I was able to collect the required 25 sensor fragments in about 15 minutes or so, just doing laps around the site and shooting the scavengers as soon as they spawn in. By now we have all the raw materials we can collect, and we have the 25 sensor fragments we need for Professor Palin. To finish up, we just need to pick a star system that's at least 5,000 light years from our starting point and start jumping. We've already traveled about 1,500 light years, so we only need to go another 3,500 or so. The problem is, many of the systems out in this neck of the galaxy are permit locked. However, I did find a path open along the border between the Sanguinius Rim and the outer Orion Spur, as shown. As you travel, remember to honk your Discovery scanner every time you enter a system. It only takes a moment, and the exploration data really adds up over time. It's pretty much free money. Also, before you turn around and head back to the bubble, check and make absolutely sure you've traveled far enough by checking your stats in the codex. You should find your distance traveled filed under Exploration. At this point, if you've traveled more than 5,000 light years, you're pressed for time, and/or you just love the taste of cheese, you can self-destruct and you'll respawn at the last place you docked. Of course, this will cost you a rebuy, and you'll lose all the exploration data you've collected so far. But you will get to keep the engineering materials you've gathered. Or you can do what your old Uncle Manus did and plot a course back to the bubble, put that hammer down, and give it hell. Using this method and a lot of jet cone boosting, I was able to make it back to the bubble in less than an hour and a half. If you choose to fly back to the bubble, be sure to save your exploration data. In the next video, we'll use it to get a head start on unlocking Marco Quint. our last speed bump on the way to Professor Palin. Before we wrap this up, let's talk about jet cone boosting. As I mentioned before, you'll need to set the Use Jet Cone Boost option in the galaxy map and be sure you have neutron stars picked in your filters. Every time you jump, you should check the upper right panel to see the type of star you're about to jump to. That way you'll have a bit of warning before you enter a neutron star system. As I mentioned before, it's a good idea to keep your fuel tank topped off since you can't scoop fuel from these stars. The nav computer will often plot jumps from one neutron star to another, and this means you could run low on fuel by your third or fourth jump if you aren't careful. When you enter a neutron star system, you should immediately throttle down to avoid getting too close to the star and being knocked out of supercruise. Then, pick the jet cone closest to your ship and move toward it slowly while heading away from the core of the star itself. Once you enter the cone, your ship will be tossed around a bit, but I find if you throttle back and keep your nose pointed away from the star, you should be able to stay in the cone long enough to fully charge your FSD in a single go. Once charged, you just need to fly out of the cone and initiate your hyper jump as usual. Once you get the hang of it, jet cone boosting can save you lots of time while traveling. The downside is it will also damage your modules over time, but not to worry, that's why we have AFMUs. On the trip back to the bubble, I did have to stop and repair my FSD one time. To do this, I had to drop out of Supercruise and power up one of my AFMUs. Then I selected the module in need of repair and chose the repair option. Once the AFMU had done its work, I just powered it down and turned the repaired module back on and resumed travel. AFMUs can repair all modules except for themselves, which is why we have two, and the power plant, so keep that in mind. Now that we've satisfied all the requirements to unlock Professor Palin and made it back to the bubble, all we need is an introduction from Marco Quint. In the next chapter, we'll go over the best, fastest, and most profitable way to unlock the otherwise useless Mr. Quint. Until then, good hunting, Commanders.
You will now be released from manual control. Mr. Dextra thanks you for your cooperation. You will now be released from manual control. Mr. Dextra thanks you for your cooperation.